I spent 20 years working with Peter Darrell. 10 years, first 10 years I was ballet master, and the second 10 years I was assistant artistic director.
What was it about the company or Darrell that made you want to go there in the first place?
Well, obviously I had seen the company in and around London on many occasions, but as I say, I'd never met Peter personally, and I so admired his use of a few dancers to make a very strong statement. It was a marvellous sense of theatre. And coming from the background that I had with, huge numbers of corps de ballet and a big company backing everything, there was suddenly an atmosphere of a few people coming together to make a very strong statement. When he was creating, you felt that everybody in the room was part of the creation, that nobody was sitting around waiting on their turn. They were always terribly interested in what he was doing with the other dancers, which was a great atmosphere. It was wonderful to work with him for that point of view. That Peter actually made every member of the company feel important. You were never the last person to join the company or the lowest member of the corps de ballet as such. You were a creative member of the setup, and you were asked to make your contribution. And that made everybody feel very important. It gave everybody a confidence to go on stage and do things because they knew the boss thought they could do it. And that's unusual in a ballet company, because in the bigger companies you're made to, toe the line and know your place and don't step out of character.
So he's also looking for acting capacity as well as physical movement ability?
I wouldn't have said he thought in terms of acting, but he had to have someone who had a personality that he could mould. He once said to me, talking about dancers in general, he said, "I can forgive a dancer falling over, but I can't forgive them if they're boring." And another example of Peter's intuition about choosing dancers. When we would go to an open audition, very often in London, there would be a huge amount of people turn up, 90% of whom were not suitable at all to be there. They weren't ready to be professional dancers. But I would be taking the class, Peter would be sitting taking notes, and I would go over to him while they were doing an exercise, and I would say to Peter, "Have you seen the blonde girl with the lovely long limbs? Have you seen her?" And he would look and he'd say, "No, no, no, no. I fancy Miss Brooch." And he would point at somebody, and I'd say, "Who's Miss Brooch?" And then he said, "There's Smiler over there. I like Smiler." And I looked at the two of them and I thought, no, 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 those girls are not suitable. Well, those girls got contracts, and both of them, on this occasion, both of them did very good things with Scottish Ballet. They were both quite talented ladies, but I couldn't see it. But he saw it in a classroom in London, which is quite tricky actually to transport a dancer from that situation onto the stage. But at the same time, Peter could go off somebody absolutely like switching off a light. I won't mention any names, but he was creating a very important role on a dancer, and we came, as is inevitable, we came to a dead stop. We were stuck. It wasn't happening. What he wanted wasn't happening. And he sat. It wasn't like Peter to dry up. It wasn't that he had no idea. He just thought, I'm not getting this. And his head went down. And then he said to her, "Well, what would you do in this situation?" And she shrugged her shoulders and went, and that was it. That was her finished in his eyes. He never did anything with her after that, nor was he interested in her. simply because she just showed that you do it, and that's your job, not mine. And it was the very opposite. He wanted you to show them or show him what you could do or what was possible. But this girl just went, that was it. That was the end of her career as far as Peter was concerned. So all he needed was cooperation. He wasn't difficult to work with at all, as long as you cooperated and felt that you were on the same wavelength. It was an incredible feeling of you were both creating the role at the same time. He was saying he wanted you to turn to the left and go forward and have some reaction to another dancer or something that you were seeing. And if you did it and he liked it, he said, yes, that's great, do a little bit more there. But if you didn't do it, he would go, I don't know. And you knew not to pursue that line. We were all working tightly together, and you could see something evolve. Not slowly, you could see it evolve very quickly, because Peter, when he was in a creative mood, it poured out of him. And it was very difficult for me to attune to this quickly enough. I remember when he was creating scenes in Tales of Hoffmann, in which I was involved, I had to say to him, Peter, can you stop? Can we go back? Because you've taught us so much, I can't remember where we started. So he had to slow down for this old man here who was finding it difficult to keep up with him. But he was very quick. When Peter was in the mood, it just poured out of him. It was wonderful. When I was working with Peter over those years, I would be responsible for the revival from start to finish of a ballet. And then I would say to Peter, right, it's ready for you to see, but you must come in and make it work. And Peter came in, and immediately he would just go and tweak something, and he would say, a little more here, and why don't you just wait a little longer before you do this? And of course, everybody's eyes lit up. They felt, this is great, he's bringing it alive for us. And that is a thankless task for anybody else to try and recreate a choreographer's intention. He had this ability to come into the room and say, come on, this is what we're going to do. And no matter how you were feeling and how ghastly the whole situation was, he managed to make it all not great fun, but he made it pleasant. And I think that's a great talent, because I could go into rehearsal and put a damper on it quite easily. I could just go in and pull a face and everybody was going, oh, here we go, another difficult afternoon with Gordon. But it was never like that with Peter. And socially the same. It was always great fun. You always looked forward to your involvement with him. He loved having parties and he loved having people round. And the funny thing about Peter's social circle was it was again a very Catholic mix of people. And he would invite people to his house, and I would think, how in the name of heavens are all those people going to get on thrown together? They were so different. But somehow his magic, it was like the way he dealt with the company. He managed to get everybody, they all gelled very well. And he obviously didn't think in terms of, I shouldn't invite him and her on the same night. He didn't think like that. He thought, oh, they'll get on, they'll be fine. And I spent quite a lot of time with Peter and went a couple of holidays with him. And the thought of going on holiday with your boss, that's a bit strange, isn't it? But I did, and it worked quite well. In fact, it worked very well. He made an atmosphere where people wanted to work. That was really what the talent was. There may have been a pleasant atmosphere, but it wasn't frivolous. It was not for 1 minute a lowering of standards. And that's something I would like to put to rest about Peter. I think it was misconceived that Peter wasn't truly classical in his attitude. Peter was the most protective of the classical repertoire of anybody I know. He didn't make any changes whatsoever. When we were taught Swan Lake, all the white acts were taught by Sheila Humphreys, who worked with me in the Royal Ballet. She had learned it from the original version, which was brought over by Sergeyev from Russia, when it was taught to all the companies like Sadler's Wells Ballet and taught to International Ballet and everything else. That was the original choreography that came out of Russia. Now the Russians are the most insincere about looking after their ballets. They change things and they put music in by other musicians. They swap things around. They take things out of one ballet, put them in another. I mean, it's unreal what the Russians do. Peter was absolutely adamant that he would have the truest version possible. And when he put his production of Swan Lake on, he only choreographed the pieces which weren't notated or weren't known as such. That he was very true to the original choreography, to the last step. He was very observant about what was correct and what wasn't. Although he was obsessed with production, he was also very insistent on a high standard of dancing. He very seldom actually got up and showed you what he wanted. It was a marvellous ability of drawing it out of you. He would just say a word, and suddenly you would think, oh, I know exactly what he means. But he didn't get up and leap about and show you what he thought it was physically. But he could tell you, or he could actually just draw it out of you with think on, he would say, and he would give you a word. And suddenly you would see exactly what he meant. Peter very seldom, when he was creating, just made dancing steps for the dancer alone. They nearly always related to somebody else or something else. He had a marvellous thing that he used a lot in his ballets, a thing of just turning your head. Sometimes it was turning your head away, not to see. And there were other times when it was turning your head to look, very pointedly to look. And it was simple things like that that made absolutely fantastic theatre. It wasn't the fantastic technical situation that the dancer was making. It was just a marvellous observation of how people looking can tell a million stories. It's incredible. A lovely, lovely moment in Cherie at the wedding reception when Leah came on, and she was looking very elegant in a blue outfit and a blue umbrella, and it was absolutely marvelous. And she sat on a bench downstage on her own, and the entire cast were upstage round the table with the cake, and everybody was chatting away, and Leah was very much not welcome. And then suddenly someone was aware of the fact she was there, and the entire group around the table just turned and looked at her. And it made you cringe. It was horrid. It was a marvellous moment. And he used that also in Carmen, when Carmen was about to be killed. She brings Don Jose into the bull ring and says, "Do it here." And, excuse me, we were all standing on the balcony, again a big built set, and everybody was round the semicircle, and for some reason or other everybody just turned away, so they never saw her being killed. It was incredible. Little things like that were just super. Great.